Today we shall analyze the poem Bavarian Gentians, which is the name of a beautiful flower, and in this sense, a poem by the master modernist David Herbert Laurence, who was a novelist, short story writer, poet, and essayist. He was born in Eastwood, Nottinghamshire, England, on September 11th, 1885. Though better known as a novelist, Laurence's first published works in 1909 were poems, and his poetry, especially his evocations of the natural world, have since had a significant influence on many poets on both sides of the Atlantic. His early poems reflect the influence of Ezra Pound and the Imagist movement, which reached its peak in the early teens of the 20th century. When Pound attempted to draw Laurence into his circle of writer followers, however, Laurence decided to pursue a more independent path. He believed in writing poetry that was stark, immediate, and true to the mysterious inner force which motivated many of his best-loved poems, and he treated the physical and inner life of plants and animals, others a little bit satirical, and he expressed his outrage at the prudishness and puritanism and hypocrisy of conventional Anglo-Saxon society. Through this poem, we will see Laurence was a rebellious and profoundly polemical writer with radical views who regarded sex, the primitive subconscious, and nature as cures to what he considered the evils of modern industrialized society. There was a Freudian influence on the literary movement called modernism, and D.H. Laurence was one of the pioneers of this investigation of the human psyche. His Bavarian Gentians is one of the poems which talk in metaphorical languages, in metaphorical words. It talks about delving deep into the dark psyche of the human being, of the ontological essence. কবিতাটা শুরু হচ্ছে, Not every man has gentians in his house. সবার বাড়িতে gentians ফুল থাকে না। গোলাপ থাকতে পারে কিন্তু gentians থাকে না। In soft September at slow, sad Michaelmas. What is Michaelmas? It is the 29th of September, and it is known as that time when there are darker nights and colder days begin. Michaelmas is known as the feast of Michael and all angels. And how is D.H. Laurence using this? The tone of sadness can be seen very evidently, because this poem was written when he was dying. So therefore we see, when the poet says, Bavarian gentians, big and dark, only dark, darkening the daytime, torch-like with the smoking blueness of Pluto's gloom. যেন অন্ধকার মানুষের অবচেতন এবং অচেতন জায়গায় একটা বাভারিয়ান জেনশিয়ান্স ফুল সে হাতে করে নিয়ে নামছে, ফুলটা যেন একটা টর্চের মতন শুধু অন্ধকার আলো বেরোচ্ছে। It is darkening the daytime. It is not lightening the day. It is darkening the day, as if the flower has become a torch. And with that torch, or with that flower, the poet is delving deep into the dark psyche, the dark unconscious, through the stairs of the subconscious. It is smoking blueness of Pluto's gloom. Who was Pluto? Pluto was the ruler of Hades, the underworld. So the gloom of Pluto can be felt. Everyone knows how Pluto had abducted the daughter of Zeus, Persephone, which was brilliantly sculpted by the Italian Renaissance sculptor Bernini. So Laurence writes, Pluto's gloom, ribbed and torch-like, with their blaze of darkness, spread blue down, flattening into points, flattened under the sweep of white day. Torch flower of blue smoking darkness, মানে একটা ফুল হঠাৎ করে সে টর্চ হয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু সেই টর্চ থেকে বেরোচ্ছে আলো নয়, অন্ধকার। কি সাংঘাতিক ইমেজ! Pluto's dark blue days. So you see, the first half of this poem is filled with words like dark, only dark, darkening the daytime, smoking blueness, Pluto's gloom, the sadness of Michaelmas, the blue smoking darkness. So everything is dark. It is a dark and stark poem. Black lamps from the halls of Dis. Remember that Dis is the infernal city which we see in the 6th circle of hell in Dante's Inferno. So the first half of this poem is completely filled with dark imagery, filled with darkness, social darkness, psychological darkness, and the darkness of the human being, giving off darkness, blue darkness, as Demeter's pale lamps give off light. Lead me then, lead the way. So he's asking Bavarian Gentians, with the aid of Bavarian Gentians, he's proceeding to find more about the true nature of the ontological essence of man. In the second half, Laurence continues to delve deep into this darkness. He says, or rather writes, reach me a gentian. That means he's asking for the gentian, the dark flower which will be oozing darkness. Darkness has become light. It may seem like an oxymoron, but it is the desire for darkness. It is the desire for everything which is dark. And the Bavarian Gentian's flower has become, for the poet, a dark torch. He says, reach me a gentian, give me a torch, let me guide myself. So he wants the flower as a guide for his own journey. He wants to know the darkness, the blueness. One must remember the blueness associated with Shiva from the Hindu mythology. Nilkantha bola hoy take. Let me guide myself with the blue forked torch of this flower. Down the darker and darker stairs, আরো গভীরে যাচ্ছে, ক্রমশ গভীরে চলে যাচ্ছে, অন্ধকারে যাচ্ছে, গাঢ় অন্ধকারে যাচ্ছে. Where blue is darkened on blueness, so he has delved into such a space which is so dark that now darkness has doubled itself and is harping on blueness. Even where Persephone goes, who is Persephone? The daughter of Zeus, as you can see that she was raped and abducted by Pluto. Here in this picture you will see how Persephone is shrieking out. She's asking for help, but unfortunately there is no one to arrive, and Pluto takes full advantage, abducts her, and she will go on, and he will rather go on to rape her. The screen shows you the beautiful sculptor Bernini's magnificent piece of art. So even where Persephone goes just now, from the frosted September to the sightless realm where darkness is awake upon the dark. So you see, you can count the number of times the poet had used the word dark. And Persephone herself is but a voice, or a darkness invisible, enfolded in the deeper dark of the arms, plutonic and pierced with the passion of dense gloom. Among the splendor of torches of darkness, shedding darkness on the lost bride and her groom. So Bavarian Gentians thus proves to be one of the darkest poems that modernism can ever write about.